Right, good morning folks, and it's a lovely day here in Bolton. It's bloody cold, the sun's out, a little patrol pack packed. It's time to go to the woods, so we'll get back to you in a bit. And here we are, down at the woods, and going to take a different walk in today. Don't fancy walking up the steep embankment to the woods and slipping on the leaves, so I'm going to take the somewhat more civilised route on the path round. And quite misty here as well at the moment, with it being fairly early in the morning, before 9. Not been on this path for a while. I tend to just cut through the woods. The last time I used this path, some local gypsies had left a horse tethered up here. It's grazing away in the sunshine. I don't think it's there today. Wow. What a lovely morning. I know I keep saying that, but it truly is. And quite a bit of mist here still. And there's a little sort of tinge of frost on the top with the sun not being able to reach this bit. Right, so let's continue. I'll just come off the path and just look at this. Such a beautiful time of the year as autumn rolls into winter. Absolutely spectacular. Very misty up there near the there's a big clump of marsh reeds up there. And we've got woods to the left and woods to the right. And previously did a last minute one night wild camp in the woods on the right last summer. But today, again, as in the last video, we're going to go to the woods on the left, as it's a lot drier in there. And there's a great chance of getting fuel for a fire. Unbelievable. Right, so we're back at one of my old brew spots, and I've just noticed that 4 little pieces of timber that are cut to prop up the brew grill is still here, as you can see. And it's not a bad spot, this, really. Get a fire going. Your fire's sort of secluded from any of the dog walkers who are either cutting through the woods or further down on the field. It's not a bad spot, really. Somewhere to sit. There's plenty of dead and dry timber about to use for the fire. So yeah, let's get on it and let's get a fire going. Right, so just about got the fire going for a brew. It's very damp here. I'm just going to give it a bit of a blow and then see if we can get more life into it. Right, so only a minute or so away from my brew, and it's bloody nippy in here. Then again, we are in the middle of November, so only to be expected. And, very quiet here as usual. I'm not really seeing that many people. As I came into the woods, I saw an elderly lady with 2 large dogs, and then about 5 minutes ago I saw some dude hammering it through the woods on a mountain bike. And that's it, really. And right in the far distance you can hear the thrum of traffic from the A666. So all's good. Time for a brew. Right, so that's boiled. Oh, really looking forward to this. Right, so I've had my brew and just banged a little bit of porridge on here in this this billy can for a bit of brekkie. And the sound of traffic seems to have calmed down, obviously because people have arrived at the destinations, namely work or shopping. So it's gone a little bit quieter, which is always a good thing. And that worrying thing, actually, I've seen 3 or 4 insects about today, including one that was buzzing quite close to the fire. Normally you wouldn't be too bothered by this, but with it being the middle of November, it's quite worrying. So time for some brekkie, and we'll come back in a minute. So I've had my brew, and porridge is almost ready. And made a video last week about men's mental health, and this week I want to talk about mental health in generally, but particularly mental health in the modern world. And as human beings in 2018, we're expected to do an awful lot of stuff that perhaps we don't really question. People are working longer, people are working harder, and there's almost this identikit human being thing that we're meant to be, which involves having this rock solid work ethic where you sort of just work yourself into the ground regardless of how you feel in your health, and then all the money that you've accrued goes into paying bills and into buying all this consumer stuff that we seemingly keep replacing every few months or so. And if people want to live like that, that's okay, although it's not okay in terms of the destruction of the natural world and resources. But people justify it because they work really hard, and you have to have a bit of sympathy with them, really, in a way. But general mental health, depression, anxiety, stress, it's not always something that people are born with. And I just want to talk today really about possible ways of alleviating it and ways of dealing with it without taking drugs. So I'll just have my porridge, and then I'll come back to you in a few minutes if I don't get completely engulfed by smoke. Okay, so I've had a nice chill out and brew and a bowl of porridge, recharge the old batteries. And it's interesting that it was keeping on the theme of mental health. There was a young dude just walked past, out walking his dog, young guy about 19, 20, and he looked over, smiled, and he said, "You chilling out, mate?" And I said, yeah. And he looked back and he said, "Yeah, it's got to be done sometimes." So that was an interesting little meeting. And woods are silent at the moment, so I've packed up here completely, and you can't see that I've been here at all, really. I've left no trace, as your bushcrafters put it. And time to move on and talk some more. Right, so all packed up, and time to explore these lovely woodlands and talk a little bit. So yeah, as I touched on a few minutes ago, we live in a very pressurised world where we're expected to do lots of things really that are taken for granted, that we never discuss, never question, and ultimately when things go wrong, and the shit hits the fan, you think, what the hell on earth just hit me? And you know, mental health affects 1 in 4 people, so the statistics say it's probably considerably more than that in the modern age. And you know, I think really if we value our lives, our family lives, our whole time on earth, really we should be looking after ourselves, and we should respond to things that make us ill, not just physically ill. Physically ill's easy. I've just slashed my finger open with a very sharp bushcraft knife, and I put a bandage on it. Easy peasy. The stuff that's not so easy is the stuff that goes on inside your head. Mental health. All sorts of stigma and stereotypes attached to mental health. If people know nothing about it, they might conjure up an image of Jack Nicholson in The Shining with a big glinting blade, or the Mad Axeman. There's literally dozens of these stereotypes, and of course they all come from quite a primitive past in the history of medicine and psychiatry and stuff. But really, I can't stress how a lot of issues can be dealt with just by thinking about what you do, and sometimes it can be, I mean, here's an example. Say you've been working sort of regular 50-60 hour shifts in a warehouse, and you've not taken any time off, and your boss suddenly says you need to come in Saturday and Sunday, we're really busy, we've got to get these orders out. Now that's going to benefit your boss and the company. It's not going to benefit you though, especially if you've not had a rest, you've not had a chill out, you've not had any time to yourself, time with your family, time to think, time to listen to music, time to go for a walk, time to make things. It's benefiting them, and it's got that way with work now, where we're made to feel eternally grateful to actually go out and make money for somebody else. And the effects that this is having on people's mental health, much of it is hidden because people just keep their heads down and just carry on working. They work themselves into the ground. And sometimes with mental well-being, it's all about the ability to say no to things. It's quite difficult for some people in certain situations. But sometimes if you say no to things, then you're actually taking back a little bit of time for yourself. Time to think, time to rest, time to sleep. And but as I say, there's a lot of pressure in the workplace. And I mean, one tragic story when I qualified as a tutor as a teacher in 2003, and I worked for a local college, not Bolton, I might add. And one of the things I found out, there'd been a woman who'd been qualified for about 7 or 8 months, and the way the college were treating people, they were just throwing random hours at people here and there, under the guise that if you do all these random hours, we'll take you on and give you a full-time position. And this woman literally ran herself into the ground, and she started having problems with her sight, and she temporarily lost her sight, and she ended up taking months and months off work to try and recoup and repair. I've not seen this woman since. You know, I wish her well, obviously, and that she recovered. But there's so many examples, you know, and anybody watching this has either themselves, you know, possibly had mental health issues through employment, or they know of people who have. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not slating work. Work is a primary human activity. But what I am slating really is who controls it. And it certainly wasn't a worker that came up with the idea that we should work 5 out of 7 days a week. To me, that is absolutely a ridiculous idea. If we're lucky, we're here for 80 years, maybe a little bit longer. And the very idea that somebody should leave school at 16 and they should just get their head down and just work, retire at 65, have a few years left to rest, to do the garden, and we die, and that's it. And that's a ridiculous idea, absolutely ridiculous. For my part, I've tried for sort of the last 10-15 years to try not to work full time. Now, one of the reasons it works for me is I'm not very materialistic. Might not work for some people who are changing the phones, you know, 2 or 3 times a year. I've had 3 phones in 20 years. So it can be done, and it's all about really clawing time back. Time for yourself, time for your family, it's time that you didn't have before to do maybe what makes you happy. And it isn't work that's to blame completely. There's a lot of external influences from the media, and there's an awful lot of pressure on young people at the moment. Even though the pressure that young people are receiving, we're not helping by sort of leaving them a planet that's quite possibly on the verge of extinction. And you know, I've mentioned before, mental health does affect everybody, men, women, children, young and old. But in most cases, we can do something about it, and we've just got to take that initial thing, the first brave move of acting and doing something about it. Now for me, if I get stressed out or pissed off, I've created myself purposefully quite a few outlets over the years, not just for the sake of good mental health, but also to have like some semblance of a life. So I'll come out on woodland walks, I do gardening, grow fruit and vegetables. I also write music, sort of electronic dance music, some of which, hint hint, is on the YouTube channel. And it's that thing really of, I'm sure we're not meant to go through life where all we do is work and sleep. So all I'd like to say to people is, if something fires you up, pulls on your heartstrings, gives you a shine, gives you a spark, then follow it. It could end up saving your life. And as I say, we do live in a very pressurised world where we're meant to make money for other people, and it seems that with the whole of society really, that there doesn't seem to be room for human beings to have downtime. You're either working or you're pressurised into aimlessly driving around multiplexes, signing up to consumer goods, getting yourself in debt, and it's a bit of a joke really. So that's just a few more words today on mental health and how the modern world affects it. And as I say, it does sound like I've got a real downer on work. I haven't at all, but at the moment, this whole idea of work and people not being paid properly and getting into debt and having to work even more and even harder, is affecting millions of people. And whatever managers and economists tell us about this situation, it's not set in stone. It's actually designed like that, so one group of people do all right while the rest of us are running ourselves into the ground. And things can be different. You know, we have to reevaluate how we work, and I'm not just talking about how we work in terms of employment, how we do things, how we engage with other people, how we engage with our local environment, what we think about things. And there's nothing wrong with you know, wanting a reasonable life, you know, where there's like some semblance of happiness there, where you can rest without guilt. So that's it for the moment, and I hope I've made a little bit of sense. So it's time to go and explore a little bit more of these beautiful woodlands while the sun's still bouncing off the beautiful golden leaves. Over and out.